It's been a minute, but I am so excited to be back with you today for another Be Inspiration. Today, I'm going to get into something that I believe we can all relate to, and it is our struggle or our relationship with fear. And so, I've had such an eventful summer, so busy, so many things going on, and I allowed myself to get a little bit off track. And with all the distractions that I had going on, I did not take the time to focus and be intentional about overcoming or not succumbing to fear, I should say. So one of the things that sort of started coming up for me this summer is the fact that I am a swimmer now, right? So I used to have so much trouble or such a deep rooted, deathly fear of the water, right? Like super scared. If my feet were not on the ground, it was the end of the world. I couldn't handle it, right? And I tried over the years to learn how to swim. My husband tried to teach me so many different times to learn how to swim. It just wasn't working. Finally, like before I got married about 18 years ago, I took swimming lessons. And that was like my introduction to my journey to overcoming the fear of swimming, right? And so that kind of helped me. I was able to swim underwater. I was able to not panic as much, but I still wasn't comfortable in deep water, right? So eventually, after trying and trying and trying, I finally was able to learn how to swim in while we were overseas, because I was like, listen, I want to have the fun too, right? I want to enjoy what everybody else is enjoying. I want to do, the water sports. I want to do the adventures without being so scared. So I finally learned how to swim, and I realized that I always knew how to swim, right? It was just the fear that was keeping me from actually accomplishing the the task of doing the thing, right? So what do I mean by that? Basically, a fun fact that I learned in sort of like looking into all of this is that babies are actually born with an inherent reflex of swimming. Like babies already essentially know how to swim. They know how to move their muscles, move their arms and legs to basically swim. And not only that, but their body has a natural response to being submerged in water. Their breathing slows down, they're able to hold their breath for a certain period of time, and all that stuff. So, what does that tell me? That we are born with the tools necessary to swim. And if we didn't have the fear of not knowing how to swim, we would just eventually learn how to swim. Like, don't just throw your baby in the water thinking, "Oh, my baby could swim." No, that's not what I'm saying. We still have to learn the skill. We're not built, or we weren't made to be in water, but we have all the tools to learn how to be in water. But because as we grow up, at some point, we have some sort of encounter with water. We may like get water on our face and realize that we can't breathe, and we develop this panic, this fear of being in the water. But babies don't know to be afraid, right? They don't know to be afraid of the water. So they just do it. They just swim. They just, do use their skills, the instincts that they have to swim. But at some point, right, we learn that fear and that we should, be afraid, that we should be concerned about this thing because we just can't do it. So this kind of story of sinking and floating and sinking and floating and fear reminded me of a story from the Bible, and I'm going to read it to you. It is when Peter was walking on water, right? You all probably heard of this story. Jesus was walking on the water, and then he called Peter to come to him. Or Peter said, well, God, if this is really you, Lord, if this is really you, call me to come to you on the water. So he's like, all right, come to me on the water. And so let me read it to you so you kind of have the gist of it. It's from Matthew chapter 14, 27 through 31. And it says, but Jesus spoke to them at once. Don't be afraid, he said. Take courage. I am here. Then Peter called to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you, walking on the water. Yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. And immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him. and said to him, "O you of little faith, why do you doubt?" So when Peter had faith, right, when he first spoke to Jesus and said, "Well, if it's you, then call me to come to you," he had the faith. He believed that it was possible that he could do it. Because I know I wouldn't have been like, "Well, let me come walk to you on the water." That would not have been my first response. But Peter's faith was so great at that moment that he said, "Okay, I'm trusting in you, Lord. I'm trusting in your power. I'm trusting that if you said a thing, that it's going to be," right? So he steps out on faith, he walks on the water, and then he starts to believe or consider his own limitations, right? He considers, like, oh my God, the winds, the this, the that. He's getting distracted by all the things that are going on around him, and he's not staying focused on God, on Jesus in that moment. He's not staying focused. He's focusing on his own fear, his own lack, his own limitations, right? And I think that is just like so profound, that distinction that is showing us, like, if you stay focused on God, if you get a word, a premonition, if you get an unction, if you get, something that you feel like God is telling you to do, like, step out on this business, or go for this promotion, or go for this very difficult job, or, run this marathon, or whatever the challenge is, right? If you are going after it because you feel like it was given to you, it was a calling for you, that it's something that you need to accomplish, that it's going to make you someone who you want to be, and you step out on it, but you then allow the challenges, the obstacles, the hurdles to keep you from going full force ahead, right? That is just like ministering to me right now, because part of this, whole channel is like me stepping out on what I feel like God is, calling me to do, to share my wisdom in the word, what I learn, and, the different things that come about in my life, and how I can connect that to the word to help someone else. But in my own insecurities, considering my own limitations, I'm like, you know what, God, there are so many people out there who are doing this type of thing. There's so many wonderful, amazing people who are sharing and who are encouraging and who are ministering, right? Maybe you don't really need me. Maybe it's just in my head, right? And I'm so grateful for like amazing people that are around me who encouraged me and said, listen, they don't have what you have, right? Not in a sort of negative way, like I'm better, but also like you have your certain thing, they have their certain thing. So just because there's Burger King doesn't mean McDonald's is gonna, close down. Just because there's Chick-fil-A doesn't mean that PDQ is not gonna start popping up everywhere. So, and all these other places, Raising Cane's and this and that, whatever. Just because there is doesn't mean there is not a group for you, a space for you, a room for you, a boardroom for you, right? A people for you. You have your own space. So do not let fear take you off track. Do not let fear tell you that despite what God has already said, you can't do it. That is false, right? Fear is false evidence appearing real. So it appears real when you are in water, that in fact you will drown, right? And of course, if you have not learned the skill of swimming, then perhaps you will. However, once you have learned the skill, nothing should keep you bound in fear. So once you have the tools to do the thing, right? And not having the tools, we can always make excuses as to what we don't have, right? So being a person in a country where you have access to YouTube, and you have access to social media, and you have access to a phone or internet, you have the tools, right? So once you have the tools, and once you have acquired the skill to do the thing, nothing should keep you from accomplishing that. Nothing. And that's what fear is like. That's what walking out on faith is like, right? We are all swimming in deep waters. Sometimes we panic, right? Sometimes we get overwhelmed. Sometimes we are like, oh my God, like, how am I going to get through this, right? But just know that the key to being a successful swimmer is controlling your breathing, calming down, and focusing on your skill. And we can do that same thing in life, controlling your breathing, calming down, focusing on your skill and the tools that you have. And when it gets too much, right? Because even in waters, deep waters, good swimmers can have challenges, right? So when you have those challenges, I challenge you to do like Peter and say, "Help me, Lord. Help me, Lord. Here I am. Help me. I need you in this moment." And did you hear in the scripture where it said, the minute he said, "Help me, Lord," Jesus immediately stepped in to save Peter in that moment. Immediately. I was talking to a friend this week and they were talking about a challenge that they were facing and how they didn't know how they would manage if they stepped out on faith, if they stepped out into the unknown. And what I told them was, God will always make a way out of no way, right? You may not see the open door, but there's always an open door. The word tells us that there is always an open door. God has already, always made an escape. It's just our job to be still, to be calm, and to hear and to see and to receive where that open door is, where that alleyway is, where that pivot is, where that fork in the road is. There is a way, right? So seeking God when we feel like we have, and not only when we feel like we have exhausted all of our resources, but seeking God in every moment, in everything that we do, so that we don't allow fear or anything like that to paralyze us and keep us from accomplishing what we're set out to accomplish. So, what is holding you back today? Is there something that you would like to do, that you would like to accomplish, that you would like to step out on faith on, and you feel like you're being held back? There's just like this roadblock. I'm telling you, trust and have faith. There's nothing to it but to do it. I kept putting up roadblocks for myself, saying, I need to record a video. I need to start putting out my content again. I need to. There's nothing in the way. Just fear, fake old fear, pretending to be a roadblock in my way. And so the same is for you. Trust, step out on faith, be calm, focus on your resources, focus on your skill and what you have, and you will be amazed at what you accomplish from overcoming fear, from laughing in fear's face. So I can't wait to hear your comments. Let me know how this resonated for you and what is it that you are fearful of and what you're going to do to step out and put yourself out there to overcome that fear. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and please share it with someone who needed to hear it. I appreciate you. I love you. I pray you have a blessed day, a blessed week, amazing month, and amazing fourth quarter of the year. See you next time.